Welcome to the Aesthetic Business Masters podcast, where we deep dive into the world of aesthetic medicine, business growth, and industry innovation. Whether you're a seasoned professional or just starting out, this is your go-to space for insights, expert interviews, and practical strategies to help you stay ahead in the ever-evolving aesthetics industry. I'm Nicole Montgomery, your host, and I'm here to bring you inspiring conversations, real success stories, and the latest trends shaping the future of aesthetics. So grab a coffee, sit back, and get ready to elevate your knowledge and your business. Let's get started. Today, I'm welcoming Jade Sphere, founder of Jade Start, a business strategist and management consultant who has helped beauty and aesthetic business owners across 15 countries scale to six-figure months while working less. With a background in law, accounting, and insolvency, Jade combines her deep financial acumen with her passion for empowering beauty professionals and builds businesses that thrive with or without them. After witnessing firsthand the emotional and financial toll of poorly prepared exits, Jade now teaches owners how to structure their business for sustainable success and eventual sale, even if they have no intention of selling right now. Welcome, Jade. Hello, Jade. I'm going to jump straight into the questions today and ask you if you can start off by telling us a little bit about how you got into the coaching space.
Yeah, for sure. So I started Jade Start with a strong passion for helping businesses have the right advice, the right structures, the right strategies. I come from a corporate background of insolvency and business consulting, and I saw the nasty end of business. And so I was like, you know what? I want to try and help as many businesses as possible get their structures set up right from the beginning and try and set themselves up for success. You started with like an open scope of who I worked with. I didn't actually like niche down into the beauty and aesthetics industry straight away. When I first launched the business, I found I had a client right from day one, and I was like busy right from day one. So I knew there was a demand. I actually did it as a uni assignment at school when I was studying law. My lecturers said to me, "You have no competition. There's only one competitor in this space. Like, I think you should go ahead and launch this." And so I did it. I got a A plus, like a high distinction for the assignment. And they said, "Launch it." So I said, "Okay." So I did it, and was busy right from day one. So I knew there was demand. But I found that most of my clients started coming from the beauty industry. And so I was like, okay, well, there's a real need in this industry for what I'm offering. And so over time, I eventually niched down into the beauty and aesthetics industry. Like everyone, resisted niching for a little while. I was like, oh, but I can help more people if I don't niche. And then I realized, you can have a bigger impact if you niche. And so we niched probably about 3 years into the business and haven't looked back.
Well, we love you in this industry, so I'm glad you did. And what led you to shift from law and insolvency to consulting in the business space? Was it because of the assignment, your lecturer, or was there something more there?
Yeah, there was definitely a lot more there. So at the time, I was working for a property developer on the Gold Coast. We had a portfolio of properties between Port Douglas and the Gold Coast that we were building, leasing, managing, selling residential apartments for. It was a really big set of projects we had on our hands. And at the time, I was in-house legal, and I was sharing my role between in-house legal and in-house property management. So I was doing like a lot of the commercial leasing, managing the tenants, their fit outs, getting them in, keeping them happy, as well as doing all the legal side of things. So residential contracts, commercial leases, any internal corporate matters that required legal attention. So litigation, all that kind of stuff. And the sole project on the Gold Coast went into receivership. And the day it went into receivership, it was so somber. Everyone knew something was happening, but we didn't know what was going on. The receivers came in. The directors weren't around. They had to go and they left, and the receivers came in. And I remember it was sort of, they all lined us up and had a big chat with us and said, the business has been taken over. It's under receivership. We are now stepping in as control. We're now going to be running the company. And that moment was like, you have those life-changing moments in your life. That was one of my life-changing moments. I'll never forget how uncertain it felt. I felt the energy in the room of everyone else, all my peers around me, and how unsettled they were, unsure. They didn't know if they're going to have a job at the end of the day. Like fear came in. There was so much that was going on. And I remember in that moment thinking, I've got to step up and really really help the situation, prove my worth. I really want to stick around and help this receivership and really see if I can make an impact. And so I did. My attitude was, let's just do whatever it takes to help get this job done so that we can save the business and save the project. And I worked internally in that company for another 4.5 years. Oh, sorry, another 3.5 years, because that was, yeah, it was nearly 5 years all up that I think that I worked there. And so it was about a year beforehand and then another 4.5 years after. And then I was the last person left in that company. So everyone else had done their jobs, moved on, and I was the last person left. And then PwC took me on. And I worked inside PwC in their insolvency team. And for another maybe 4 years, I can't remember now, I worked inside their insolvency team and worked on some really, really big insolvencies, like stuff you would have seen in newspapers, really big headline public stuff, as well as some not public stuff as well. And there was a real mix of good news stories and bad news stories in there. Like a lot of people, I remember one day I showed up to work and I had to fire 500 people because of a company we took over just could not be saved. It was beyond gone. And so I had to make a lot of phone calls over those 2 days and tell people that they lost their jobs. And I worked in a specialist area in insolvency as well called the Personal Property Security Register. And when I was managing that side of insolvency, I had to call people and tell them that they couldn't come and pick up their machines or their assets because they didn't make a registration properly. And so therefore they weren't getting it back. And sometimes these machines were people's livelihoods. That was how they were making a living. And so this whole area of insolvency, like I cannot tell you how stressful and awful it is on business owners, the community, the staff, families, everything. And so I am such a positive person. I was in there to try and make a difference and to try and help people. And I realized some people can be helped, some people can't, but where you can make a bigger difference is well before the insolvency stage. So then I switched over to the consulting side at PwC and started working with scaled networks and larger businesses. So they would come to us like franchise groups, major corporate site groups where they've got lots of corporate owned sites and just bigger businesses. And they would say, we want to lift the performance of our business. How do we do it? And myself and my fellow teammates would go in, we would meet with all the individual business owners. We'd come back and we'd create a program for that specific collective group or that business. And then we would roll it out, test pilot, report on it, and then roll it out en masse. And we would lift the performance of the whole network and grow it. And I realized this is way more fun than insolvency because I'm actually having a bigger impact. And so that's when I knew that, okay, I was doing Jade Start this whole time, but that's where I knew I was like, okay, where I can actually, it just reaffirmed to me within Jade Start that where I can have a bigger impact is by coaching more people and getting in front of more businesses, because then I'm able to help more people get the right growth in their business, the right stability, the right culture, which are all the fundamental elements to helping people keep freedom in their business. And so that's what I did. And that's why I pivoted away from insolvency and into the coaching side a lot harder.
Goodness me, that is such an interesting and diverse beginning. But at the same time, there's so many parallels to medicine because prevention is better than a cure.
Absolutely. Yep.
And was there a moment when you realized how crucial it was to prepare early for selling your business?
Yes. I cannot tell you the amount of times I have conversations with business owners and they're wanting to sell because things are bad. The business is too stressful for them now. It's gotten out of control and they just don't want the stress anymore. It could be that they've had something come up in their personal life and therefore family circumstances have changed overnight and they can't, keep going the way they've been going and giving the business the attention it has. It could be that they out of their league, maybe they've hired too many staff or the business has grown too quickly and they don't really know what they're doing. And so they're like, you know what, it's better that we just sell it. But when you prepare your business for sale early, what happens is the business will run really well. And often the time to sell it is not when it's struggling. It's when you are having a really thriving business that is generating you income and very little problems. That's when is the best time to sell, because that's when you're going to get the best purchase price for it. But nobody ever thinks about it like that. And so when you prepare your business for sale early, what you're doing is you're setting yourself up with options. You don't have to sell it, but if a business is running without you, then you have options. Like if something comes up personally, or you fall pregnant, or something happens with a family member, you're not needed in that business. And therefore, you can either choose to sell it if you want to, or you can continue to run it and have a thriving business without you being in it as much. And I think a lot that feels like a pipe dream for a lot of people, because they don't know the steps or the strategies to get their business sale ready. And I think the other biggest thing that happens is when I have conversations with clients or potential clients on strategy sessions, we say to them, what's your long-term goal? Do you want to sell the business? They say, oh no, I just want to keep it. And so they're not thinking about the potential to sell the business. So therefore they're not taking the steps to get the business sale ready until it's too late.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And what are some of the common reasons that you see people considering to sell now at the moment in the market as it is?
A lot of people are selling now because they're struggling financially. So they think, they've got tax debt still rolling over from COVID. Maybe they bit off a bit more than they can chew with machine purchases, and therefore they can't really afford the repayments or anything like that. Sometimes a lot of the times they're just burnt out as well. Like I'm having a lot of conversations with people who are just exhausted. They've been running a long race. It was been a really challenging economy for the past few years, and they're just exhausted. And they're like, you know what? I just want to get out. I want to go live a better life. I just want to have things be simpler. There are some really common reasons why people are wanting to sell. We're having very few conversations with people who are, you know, they're ready to go. They've got the energy, and they're like, you know what? I just want to get the business ready for sale, so I've got options. That doesn't happen. It's very, very rare.
Well, hopefully you turn that around and people become more proactive while having coaching with you. And what are some of the biggest surprises or shocks that business owners face when they decide to sell?
They're usually shocked to realize it's very difficult to get the purchase price they want when they haven't taken certain steps to set themselves up for sale. For example, we're massive on having memberships or treatment plans or any kind of reoccurring revenue model in your business, because it actually helps you get a really good sale price in your business. If you've got guaranteed income coming in, when a purchaser goes to the bank to buy your business, they can show the bank that, and the bank will be like, okay, cool. Well, I know this business can afford repayments because it's got guaranteed revenue coming in. So, yeah, we'll lend you the money to buy the business. They're also shocked to find out that they have so many deposits and retained fees on file that actually act as a deduction on the purchase price when they go to sell it. So if they're not proactive in keeping their clients' credit amounts under control, like I've seen businesses where those credit amounts have been tens of thousands of dollars, and that's really impacted their sale price, especially if they've had the business for a long time and they haven't been monitoring the credit amounts on file. Other things that a lot of people sort of are a bit shocked about is sometimes the worth of the assets in the business. And so a lot of people go in thinking, well, I paid 100 grand for this machine. I must be able to get, at least 80 grand back. But depending on how long we've held that machine for and what the secondhand value or depreciation value is for that machine, some people are a bit shocked to find out what they can actually get for their assets in the business too. So having a good conversation with your accountant and prepping for a sale, if you even 3 to 5 years in advance will help inform decisions like, should I purchase this machine? Should I lease it? Should I rent to buy? Because, if you just lease machines, well, you don't have an asset to sell. If you're renting to buy, you still don't have an asset to sell unless that machine's been paid out. But if you have purchased it on finance, what's the machine's value going to be over the next 3 to 5 years should you sell at any period in time? So it's just having really good and honest and open conversations with your accountant to understand what's the business's worth. Culture can actually create worth in a business as well. So having a really good brand in the marketplace, goodwill in the marketplace can help. Not having trademarks, especially if you've got a unique brand, can trip you up, because if there are other businesses in the marketplace with a similar name, especially in your area, it could make people dubious about, going ahead with your business because they know a rebrand post-purchase takes time and they don't want the muddy waters of, you and your competitor with similar names being a problem of theirs, especially if they're going to get bad Google reviews from clients left on the wrong page and, other bits and pieces. So yeah, there's lots to think about and lots that, go into play when it comes to getting a purchase price for a business, but preparation is always key.
Absolutely. And I guess there's also the fear that the person who's selling the clinic could potentially go and open somewhere else and just take all the clients. So I'm guessing that there's a lot of legal work that needs to go in that you would be able to help with, including trademarking and everything else.
There's usually contracts that get signed that prohibit the business owner from doing that for a period of time. So usually there's non-competes in the contract that will stop them from opening a business within a geographical location for a period of time after, and that protects the business owner. But in saying that, there's a lot of people that ignore those too. So you're right. But usually the legal contracts give them comfort around that.
Well, I feel like it's a lot easier to buy a well-established business than it is to start from scratch, because it is not easy to start with, with no clients and a brand new business. When buyers are on the hunt and looking to invest in a beauty or aesthetic business, what are they looking for?
It's a really good question because sometimes people think that buyers are going to come from existing salon or clinic owners. They may not. If you have a really well-run business, you could have somebody who's never run a salon or clinic before step in and own that business. And that's like the perfect dream for you if you're trying to sell, because then it opens your buyer pool significantly from being, somebody who does your trade to anybody who runs a business. And that's amazing. So if you're targeting anybody to buy your business, not just somebody who's going to buy themselves a job or, a project, then you really they're looking for things like, can the bank lend the money for the purchase? Because if the bank can lend the money for the purchase, it's going to open up your purchase price and allow you to have a bigger scope for sale. Obviously, as long as the business is worth it. They're also looking for friction. Is there friction in the business? So is the business owner working in the business? If the business owner is working in the business and generating income, that can be a problem because as soon as the business owner steps out, how much of the business is going to be lost? So if the business owner is working in the business, they'll usually require the business owner to stay working in the business for a period of time post-sale, which is awful for the business owner and for the incoming owner, because there's usually a period of time where there's a little bit of, oh, I don't really want to be here. I've already sold the business. And so that energy can be felt by both parties. So it's friction. They tend to go, okay, well, maybe if the rest of the business is worth it, we'll consider it. But if not, it's not really for us. They also look for things like processes and systems. Is the client experience the same with every therapist that they go to, or is there a clunky standard operating procedure in place or maybe there's not even a standard operating procedure in place, and so there's no real way of knowing how the business is run. So standard operating procedures are really important. Also, profitability. They love profitability because that's what banks lend off, is multiples of profit and multiples of positive cash flow. So at the end of the month, do you have cash surplus and do you have profit? They also like to know that there's no tax debt, and that can affect how they buy the business as well. So if there's debts in the company name, well, there's certain ways you can sell a business. You can sell it as a whole, as the company, and you just change directors and shareholders, or you can sell the assets within the business. And so there's different tax implications on both. And so, if you run a clean business, there's no debts, like everything, all tax obligations are kept up to date, everything's all done properly, all lodgements and everything are all on time. It gives the incoming purchaser options around which way they would like to purchase the business. And then that's always a nicer conversation to have, as opposed to there's just one way we have to do it, which is sell assets within the business, and there could be higher tax implications for both parties. There's also staffing. They want to know, so your team is your biggest asset. They want to know, what's the culture like in the team? Is the team is the team strong in the sense of they all can perform the duties that you need them to perform to generate revenue with minimum management? Is there cultural issues in between them? So do they all get along, or is there friction that they need to know about? What's the team's performance metrics like? So they'll look at all the individual performance metrics of the team members and say, who's our strong performers, who's our weak performers. So having a dream team's really important if you're going to get the business ready for sale. And you also want to have a manager who's managing the team as well. So then, it's not always the case, but if you've got a bigger clinic, you definitely want to have a manager who's managing it so they know that you aren't the one driving that team performance, that there's someone external to you who's able to generate those results with the team. But yeah, there's heaps of little variable factors, but they're the main ones.
Fantastic. Can you just recap for us, walk us through those key pillars that investors or buyers are looking for that business owners need to consider? So those key pillars of a business that's ready to sell.
Yeah. So you've got a good, strong team in place. You've got the business owner removed from the business. You've got processes and standard operating procedures that are being followed and adhered to. You've got positive cash flow and profit. You've got recurring revenue in your business, and you've got a good reputation and brand culture in the marketplace.
Fantastic. And where do business owners fall short when it comes to valuations? I feel like we probably all value ridiculously high because of the passion that's gone into that business.
So valuations are often, there's a lot of different ways you can value a business, but the most common way or ways is to take the profitability of the business and multiply it out by a set multiple. And then you factor in things like your asset purchase, like your asset costs your asset purchase cost. So how much you're going to sell your assets for, and any goodwill on the balance sheet. So it's primarily based on profit and your asset base. So where you can really help boost the value of your business is by focusing on your profitability strategies for a period of time in the lead up to a sale price. So they're not just going to look at what's your profit for the last 3 or 6 months. They're going to look at what's your profit been like for the last few years. They want to know that it's not just a blip. And so if you focus on it for a few years in the lead up to sale, then you should see like a growth. Well, they want to see growth, right? They want to see that there's growth in the business and meat on the bones. So meat on the bones means, is there an opportunity to continue to grow this business? So what strategies have not yet been implemented, or what strategies are available to implement to the new business owner? So for example, if you've been doing a lot of organic marketing, you haven't been doing paid marketing, but you've been growing month on month, meat on the bones, the business owner can come in and turn paid ads on and continue to get growth. If you have you have a blueprint down pat for the amount of revenue you can generate with the staff you've got, but you've still got some capacity in your space to have more staff and more beds, fantastic. There's still room to grow in that lease space. And leases is one thing I haven't touched on, but lease duration is also really important when you're selling a business too. You don't want to sell it when you've got 6 months left on the lease. It's a headache for the new owner. They've got to renegotiate. So yeah, so in terms of like coming up with the best sale price and how you can get that, it's focusing on the strategies years in advance so that you're building up that runway, you're demonstrating growth, and you've still got some meat on the bones for the new business owner to come in and take it.
And Jade, I'm sure you've spoken to lots of nursepreneurs along the way who start out and they're about to open their business and they plan on, 2 or 3 years, they're going to sell it to a huge conglomerate. It's going to be a massive franchise. And, we've seen these success stories in the past with Susie, who's incredible. What is the difference between building a business that you work in versus one you can sell?
So the business that you work in is one that requires you to be able to deliver to get the income. A business that you can sell is one that can generate income without you. So I think a lot of people, they fail to see that, a business to sell a business, you have to hand over control, and the business incoming purchaser has to have comfort that that revenue can continue to be delivered. So yes, you have a client list. Yes, you have a fit out. Yes, you have stock on the shelf, but are those clients guaranteed to come back to any incoming purchaser that buys that business? Well, not if there's no relationship. They could because then there's no different to them going and finding another injector, right? So you've got to warm that relationship up. You've got to do this whole handover process for a while. You have to have the new purchaser come in and work within the business with you for a while you're handing over all the clients, and there's like this transition period of time. So if you're going to be a solo nurse and work on your own and want to sell the business, you've got to be prepared for what has to come with the sale and with the handover, which is you've got to have a handover period and you've got to warm up the introduction to the new business owner and transfer it all across. If you're wanting to sell and exit, to a conglomerate, like to a franchise group, you really need to have teams in place. They won't look at it unless you've got teams, unless you've got standard operating procedures, processes, revenue coming in without you working, because that's how they can then integrate it into their franchise seamlessly.
There's definitely a lot to consider. And what are some of the biggest mistakes that business owners make when it comes to exit planning?
They don't do it soon enough. So if you leave it too late, it makes it very stressful and can also be challenging to get the business tidied up and ready for sale. I often think of it like when you're going to sell a house, how many people leave the renovations until a few months before they sell? And then it's a mad rush, right? You have head down, bum up for whatever period of time it is, depending on what renovations you're doing. And you're just nonstop, flat out doing these renovations. You're exhausted by the end of it. You're falling across the line at the sale. And then you take your break after you've sold, but you never actually got to enjoy the house when it was finished renovating and being, beautiful. You just lived in it while it was before it was renovated and while it was a mess while you're renovating. So your business is the same. Like, don't leave the renovations, which is getting your business ready for sale, until right before you're ready to sell it, because it can be really stressful. The staff can feel that anxiety and stress in the business as well. And so therefore it makes it a negative or a challenging experience for them to navigate as well, and could create a lot of anxiety with them. And it's never a business that you get to really enjoy, where you can go and take holidays, you can be present with your family, you can go and do the other things that you're thinking about doing, whether it be getting into product lines, buying investment properties, whatever it might be, and have this business that's thriving without you being in there 24/7. So think about renovations. Don't leave it to the last minute. Do it in advance, and it'll be a whole lot less stressful and a much better experience for everyone.
You make owning a business sound amazing if it's all working really well. Do you ever help people who are looking to find a business to buy?
That's more of a business broker. They think of business brokers like real estate agents. They more have the network of people in their network of that are looking for things to buy. The business broker will help either connect you with someone within the industry or someone outside of the industry that has a tick box of things that they're looking for in a successful business. But I always say, like, you'll be surprised how many businesses that get sold through Facebook groups. I've had a lot of clients sell businesses through Facebook groups, just posting on there that there's a business for sale, especially if they're a solopreneur or, business owner with maybe one or two staff. So they're not selling to a conglomerate, but they're selling more to somebody locally in the area. A lot of deals are done over Facebook groups. You don't have to put like the sale price or anything like that in the post, but you can put a post up about the business, what the offer is, what's included, and just have DM for inquiries. And then you have a disclosure statement, a confidentiality agreement that people sign before you release any information. And then you just vet them and go through the process. And yeah, we've helped a few clients, not in the medical aesthetic space, but definitely in the beauty and skin side of things, sell that way.
Amazing. And are there any problems that business owners don't realize until it's too late?
Often it's the debts in the business. So you have to make sure that you're up to date with all of your tax lodgements and you're across your balance sheet. So your balance sheet is a statement that tells you what your assets and your liability position is. If you've never looked at your balance sheet or you don't know what's on your balance sheet, that usually catches people by surprise, because during the sale price, you have to provide balance sheet statements to people who are wanting to buy the business, and they're seeing, what's going on in terms of your liability position. So if you've got debts on your balance sheet that you didn't know about or that you weren't across, it can look really surprising to you, but also you've got to explain to the incoming purchaser what that is. And so if it's incorrect or if it's, something that you weren't expecting to have to explain, it can be a bit awkward. On the balance sheet, a lot of people have loans if they're a company. So they take money out of the business, the money gets recorded as a loan on the balance sheet, and then has to be dealt with at some stage. Either you have to pay it back as wages, pay it back, or you take it out as wages, or you can declare it as a dividend. So, like, even looking at your balance sheet and going, do I have a loan account sitting on here? Because I don't want to have to explain that to a purchaser. Why is there 150 or 200 grand's worth of loan to me sitting on there? You know what I mean? It just looks like I'm trying to sell the business to pay back my loan. So even just, that catches a lot of people off guard. Just having a look at your balance sheet and finding out what's my liability position and is that all correct? And is there anything I need to tidy up before sale? The annual leave sits on your balance sheet as well from your staff, but that can often be dealt with by new contracts when the incoming purchaser buys it. Unless, the key staff and the key staff decide that, no, we don't want to sign it, we want all of our liabilities transferred over to the new owner. We don't want it paid out by the old owner in case they don't pay us or whatever. But usually annual leave can get tidied up during the sale process. So it's not that big of a deal.
Yes, yes. And I'm guessing it's important for more the solopreneur or the smaller business is not to, treat the business like your own personal wallet. I know where I've been out and about sometimes at conferences or events or whatnot and gone out for a dinner, which is totally unrelated to work. And someone will say, oh, no, I will pay as long as I do a text message or something while I'm here. This is a business meeting. And I think, oh my goodness, I can't believe your business is going to pay for this extravagant, dinner or drinks or whatever that actually have nothing to do with the business. Do you see a lot of people treating their business sometimes a little bit like their own personal bank or wallet?
Yeah, 100% all the time. And a lot of people don't realize there's limits and thresholds to what you can claim as well. So, and then they find out at the end of the financial year if their accountant tells them, oh, by the way, we've adjusted some of this down because you couldn't claim all of that. That's if you've got a really good proactive accountant, they'll tell you that. But if not, they just adjust it and put it against a loan account for you or it doesn't get you don't have the ability to use it all as a tax deduction. The thing that, people don't realize is that where you do things like that and you can't claim it, it actually gets recorded as a loan on the balance sheet. And if you're never looking at the balance sheet, it can catch a lot of people off guard. And this is the one thing that in insolvency I saw all the time. So when we would step in as liquidators, receivers, or administrators, we would look at the balance sheet and we would go, how much does the business owner owe the business? And we would audit the accounts. So I did a lot of forensic accounting. And so we would audit the accounts and go, okay, there's actually 200 grand that the business owner owes. Or in one case, we had one business owner, they owned a hair business in the city. And when it went under, their balance sheet said that they owed $350,000. And that was when we spoke to the business owner, they said, but that was our wages for 5 years. Like that was what we were taking as wages over the 5 years. They were using the credit card to pay for groceries and bits and pieces instead of taking wages. And they thought the accountant was going to square it away as wages. But if you don't take a wage every week or every fortnight or every month, what happens is the PAYG component on that wage grows throughout the year. And so, you may have taken 100 grand throughout the year or 80 grand throughout the year. But can you imagine a lump sum PAYG bill on 80 grand that then becomes, 30 grand or whatever. And then the accountant looks at their balance sheet of the cash at bank balance and goes, they don't have 30 grand to pay the PAYG bill. We'll just leave it roll over for next year and deal with it next year as a dividend. And it grows and it compounds. And then all of a sudden the business owner is left with a decision like this business owner, which is, how am I going to come up with 350 grand? Because in liquidation, receivership, or administration, you have to pay that back. Like the liquidator puts a time limit on it and says, we need that money because we've got creditors to pay. And so they had to sell their home and it put a rift in their marriage. They ended up getting divorced. It was awful. And so not looking at your balance sheet and understanding what's going on from the liability perspective can have profound flow-on impacts in situations that you weren't prepared for. So obviously no one wants to be in insolvency, but insolvency catches a lot of people off guard and can happen because of factors outside of your control. So you've got to be across it. You've got to understand it. You've got to know what's going on so nothing surprises you down the track.
Yeah, that's really scary. And I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. But sometimes we're all a little bit blinded with our positivity glasses on, thinking everything will be okay and just put our head in the sand and ignore, the things that we should be paying a little bit more attention to. So On a positive note, what are 3 things that someone can start doing today to get their business into shape for a future sale?
Yes, so you can start working on positive cash flow. Start working on generating surplus cash each month in your business and profitability strategies to be able to have a good sale price. You can start working on your dream team if you don't have it already. Get your team in ship shop shape, get yourself out of the business and have the team running the business for you. And put standard operating procedures and processes in place so the business can run without you. And reoccurring revenue. I know you said 3, but reoccurring revenue is so good. So there's your 4th one.
And how does this help somebody who's not thinking of selling?
It will set your business up for a lot less stress. So you'll be able to run your business a lot easier, which means you can step out and take holidays whenever you want. It gives you options if you fall pregnant or if you want to take time out to take care of a family member or something like that. It gives you time to work on other projects, like the business owners that do focus on this, that we've helped achieve this. They've then gone on to do other things like launch product ranges or buy investment properties or open up another location, a second location. And can I tell you, when you have a good test of your business is, can you open a second location without your first one falling apart? Because if you can do that and it can continue to run while you put all your focus on the second one, you know you've nailed it.
Oh, that's so clever and fantastic. And Jade, before we wrap up, I know you have a free resource for our listeners that goes deeper into today's conversation. Can you, Jade, tell us about your ebook and where people can access it?
Yes, thank you so much, Nicole. I've put together a free downloadable ebook called Build to Sell, the aesthetic owner's guide to a profitable exit, even if you're not ready to leave right now. So it's packed with insights on what increases the value of your business, what buyers are looking for, and how to prepare behind the scenes now so you're not caught off guard later. So inside that ebook as well, you'll find a QR code where you can book a complimentary strategy session with our team, and we'll map out your personalized roadmap to building your business that's scalable, valuable, and eventually ready to sell. So we'll make sure the link is popped in the show notes so that you can click on that and download it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Jade, for your time. And we can't wait to see you at the Aesthetic Business Masters and pick your brain more and learn how we can all grow and build profitable businesses ready for sale.
Yes, I'm excited too. Definitely come along. If you haven't got your ticket, grab it.
Thanks, Jade. Thanks for tuning in to the Aesthetic Business Masters podcast, where strategy meets soul and passion fuels profit. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share it with your team, and leave us a review. Stay aligned, stay inspired, and keep building the business and life you truly love. Until next time, here's to being bold in business and brilliant in beauty.